Hello. Alright, so I'm back. And today we're going to practice how to find an absolute value equation or inequality given a solution or a graph. So I'm going to start off with a graph. Again, a number line. Let's put a couple of, actually I'm just going to put a couple of numbers in here. Let's make this -2 and positive 8. Alright, so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to figure out what the equation could have been. You may not necessarily find an exact equation, but some of the Virginia standards of learning, one of them, you have to be able to match a graph with its equation. So what I'm trying to do is come up with ways that students can come up with the equation given the graphs, and maybe that might help them out a little bit. So anyway, this is how you do it. You basically, remember, absolute value means that there's some number in here, wherever it is, question mark, that if I traveled in this direction I got to 8, and if I travel in this direction I got -2. So if you think back in geometry, really what am I asking to find? The midpoint. That's really what I'm asking you to find. Alright, so I'm going to find midpoint. You find midpoint by taking the two numbers, adding them up, and then dividing by 2. So that's going to give me 6 divided by 2, which is 3. So if I were to put a 3 in this spot right here, let me put a 3 in there just to show you. If I put a 3 in here, all I have to figure out is how many jumps it took to 8 or how many jumps it took to get to -2. If you notice, it's the same amount. So what you do is you set up your equation. Well, I guess I'll put it over here. I'll actually put it down here. I'm going to take my part of my equation. I'm going to put this much down, okay? Because I want to know the distance away from some number is some amount and get this graph. Alright, remember that this graph shouldn't be, most of the time, is not going to show you equal distance away from 0. 0 is usually not the middle number, because remember this graph is showing what numbers you're putting in to get the distances away from 0. So 0 is not always going to be the one in the middle. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not, but most of the time it's not. So we put the 3 right here. So the midpoint is always the number that goes right here. Then we put an equals because of the dots. If those weren't dots and they were arrows and stuff like that, we'd talk about inequalities. Now, all you have to tell me is how many jumps it was to each number. Now, the easiest way to do that is just to take the higher number, which is what I always do, and subtract out the midpoint, and that gives me 5. So the answer to that is 5. And here's my equation then. And again, do I know it's exactly the equation? No, but this is an exact, this is just a plain old equation. Again, there could have been some multipliers on the outside. I don't know. All I know is this is an example of an equation that would have had this -2 and this 8 as a solution. Alright, so let's see. We'll just do another one just to make sure that we're good to go. Alright, so I have two numbers. Let's make it 4 and 10. Alright, so I take 4 plus 10, and then I'm going to add them up and divide by 2. Remember, if you were to use your calculator because you just decided to put your brain on automatic pilot, remember that you want to put this in parentheses, or you want to type in 4 plus 10, hit enter, and then divide by 2, but you should get 7. Alright, so now I'm going to put down as much as I know. X minus 7 absolute value equals. And then again, I just take the highest number, which is 10, and then take out the midpoint, and that's 3. So it's 3 units. So basically what I'm basically saying is 7's the middle number. And sure enough, if I were to go 3 units in this direction, I'll get 4. If I go 3 in this direction, I will get the 10. Alright, so that's the idea, is that I got the dead smack in the middle. Alright, because remember, absolute value has everything going the same amount of spaces in each direction on the number line. In this case, this would have been 3. And there's my answer. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to do one of these where we're going to do some absolute values. Alright, so let's see if this thing will let me turn page. There we go. Alright, so now let's do an absolute inequality. Let's keep it oops, wait, I don't want to do that. I want to do, hold on, I want to do solutions. All right, so let's say I tell you that my two, actually let's do it as a number line. All right, so I give you a number line, I put in my two numbers, let's say it's 2 and 10. Okay, and I'm going to make these open dots going out. Now, when you did these, you should already know what kind of inequality I had. So I can really set up, without doing any math, I can set up this amount. I know that when you get an OR statement, it's a greater than. If these dots were filled in, I would put an equal to down here, but I don't, so I'd leave that open, and then I just have to figure out how many jumps it is. Alright, so I'm going to take 2 plus 10, just like I did with my equations. 2 plus 10 divided by 2. So 12 divided by 2 is 6. So my middle number here is a 6. So I would put a 6 right here. Now, how many clicks is it, or how many jumps is it to 10? Or how many jumps is it to 2? Alright, so if you can't do that math, just do 10 minus 6, which is 4. And that's the number that goes right there. Okay, and that's it. I'm going to make these a little bit darker. You know, and that's all there is to it. And you just have to pay attention to whether or not you're doing greater than or less than, or filling the dots or not. So let's do one. Let's do another one. Let's do, and then I want to do what happens when these numbers don't come out to be nice and neat. What do you do then? Alright, so let's say this is a 3, and this is a, I don't know, let's say 13, and I'm going to make these solid, and I'm going to connect them together. Alright, so you should be able to fill out this much. Now, less than means that this is a less than sign. The filled in dots mean I say equal to. Alright, so I've got this much, and I haven't even done any math. Alright, so then I take 3 plus 13 and add them up and divide by 2. So that gives me 16 divided by 2, which is 8. So my middle number here is an 8. So minus 8. Alright, and again, this is always x minus, and I'll do a couple where there's they're not nice and neat, or they're negatives. Alright, so how many jumps is it from 8 to 13? Well, I'm just going to subtract. That gives me 5. So that's the number that goes in here, 5. And if you notice, if I were to do 5 in the other direction, I would get to the number 3. Alright, so let's do a couple more, but I want to make sure I hit the what happens when it's a negative. Let's see if I can get the page to change. Maybe. Maybe not. Okay, there we go. Alright. Okay, on this one, let me change colors just for the sake of doing something different. Alright, so let's say I give you this one. Number line. Maybe. Alright, number line. We do negative 5 and positive, positive 8. Alright, negative 5 plus positive 8 divided by 2. Well, that gives me 3 over 2. Now, if you want to, you can change that to a decimal. Well, that's 1.5. Alright, so let's follow the same logic. We get x minus 1.5 is, now I didn't put a graph on here. Let's see. Let's do this. This one and that one. Alright, so again, if it's going outwards, an or, that's going to be greater than. And because they're filled in, we put the line underneath it. And then we just have to figure out how far is 1.5 from 8. So if you subtract 8 minus 1.5, that's going to give you 6.5. And that's what you'll put right here. And you're done. Now, the Virginia standards for us makes us take the fraction part of it. Wow. And makes us change these all to fractions. So this would be back to 13 over 2. Now, if that happens, all you got to do is take this denominator and throw it all the way in the front. And later in later chapters, you'll find out why. But there we go. And so that's the way the SOLs, our standards of learning, would show that answer, which is kind of strange. Okay, so we're going to do one more. What happens when you get a negative? Because we haven't done that yet, and then I'll be done. All right, let's see if that changes. Okay. All right, so what happens when you get a negative? So let's see. So, whoops, I wanted to do the number line. All right, so let's do it. Let's do, come on, go away. Open dot here, stuck in between. Let's make this -5 and darn it, and make this a 3. Alright, so -5 plus 3. -5 plus 3 divided by 2. That's going to give you -2 divided by 2, which is -1. Alright, so what you're going to do here is, even though you technically have x minus a -1, you're going to clean that up just a little bit. What happens when you have minus a minus? You actually have a plus. So if you ever see an equation where you see a plus right here, that means your center, or your middle number, your midpoint, is a negative number. That's all you got to know. Alright, and then let's see, because this is less than, we're going to do less than, and because they're open dots, we don't put a line underneath. And then I just have to figure out how far. Now you have to remember, this is your starter number over here. What is 3 minus a -1? Alright, because 3, jumping all the way to -1 is 4. And so this would be a 4 right here. And that's it. That's all there is to it. I hope this helped you out.